Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really fascinating sources today looking at the psychology of money.
Yeah.
And we're not digging into, complex tax stuff or fancy calculations.
No.
We're asking something much more fundamental. What really makes the difference in your financial success? Is it like how smart you are, your degree?
Or is it just your attitude, your behavior? That's the mission today, really.
Okay.
And it's pretty wild because the real world often throws, common sense right out the window. If you think degrees and IQ points guarantee success, well, our sources hit you with the paradox right away.
Okay, let's dive into that. The first example is pretty extreme, right? This tech executive, brilliant guy.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. A chief technology officer,
Yeah.
He was key in designing early Wi-Fi router parts, held valuable patents, looked like the pinnacle of success, right?
On paper, sure. But his actual behavior with money
Yeah.
sounds like it was completely off the rails.
Utterly. Just totally reckless. He'd brag constantly, treat money like it was nothing. I mean, the story that just sums it up. The gold coins.
Yeah.
He bought 1,000 gold coins. And then he and his friends, they drive to the Pacific coast.
I know.
And they start throwing them into the ocean, like skipping stones.
Throwing gold coins into the ocean. That's not just wasteful. It's almost performative contempt, isn't it?
Really is.
Yeah.
It was all ego, like he thought his brain power meant the money tap would never turn off.
Wow.
And there's another one, the hotel lamp story.
Tell me.
Okay, so a hotel charges him like $500 for a broken lamp. Fair enough, maybe. But he pulls out this huge wad of cash, throws $5,000 at the manager, and basically says, "Take this and get out of my face."
Yikes.
You just can't sustain that. And, well, predictably, a few years down the line, bankrupt, emotionally broken, total collapse.
Okay, so that's one extreme. Now contrast that with Ronald Reed.
Ronald Reed, yeah, the complete opposite end of the spectrum. He was a janitor, worked as a gas station attendant in Vermont.
Not exactly a high-flying executive.
Nope. Not known for being brilliant or powerful. Friends said his main hobby was just cutting wood.
Okay. Simple life. Yet, when he passed away...
At 92,
Yeah.
back in 2014, it turns out he was like a secret millionaire.
How much are we talking?
Over $8 million. He was actually one of like fewer than 4,000 Americans who died that year with that level of wealth.
Wow. A janitor. How?
Just patience, frugality. He consistently invested in blue chip stocks for decades and lived super simply.
And he gave a lot away.
Yeah, left millions to his local hospital and library. So the contrast is just stark, isn't it?
It really is.
The genius with all the credentials, total behavioral meltdown, the ordinary guy with simple habits, huge wealth.
So what's the big takeaway here for us? It kind of flips the script on finance, doesn't it?
Totally.
The main idea seems to be that handling money well is actually a soft skill, psychology.
Yeah.
How you act is way more important than how much finance theory you know.
Exactly. And we see these behavioral failures everywhere, not just with that tech exec. Think about Richard Fiscone.
Okay, who was he?
He had the pedigree, right? Harvard MBA, top executive at Merrill Lynch. I mean, if anyone should understand risk, compound interest, all that, it's him.
You'd think so. But he also ended up ruined.
He did. Got way over leveraged, built this enormous mansion, like 18,000 square feet.
Who needs that much space?
11 bathrooms, 2 pools, all built on borrowed money. His monthly upkeep alone was over $90,000.
$90,000 a month. Just to maintain it.
Yeah. So when the 2008 crash hit, boom, wiped out. Bankruptcy.
Okay, but hold on. If he's a Merrill exec, Harvard MBA, shouldn't that training have, scream danger at him about that level of debt?
That's a really good point.
Does that kind of elite training maybe make people overconfident instead of cautious?
Well, the sources kind of suggest that maybe education teaches you how to calculate risk, but it doesn't necessarily teach you self-control. Fiscone knew the math, sure, but he lacked the basic behavioral stuff, right? Patience, knowing when enough is enough, a healthy fear, things Ronald Reed just had. These survival skills, they seem to have like zero link to your IQ score.
Okay, so brilliance isn't the answer. That makes you really question how we judge other people's money choices, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
If the geniuses and the highly trained experts are making these seemingly crazy mistakes, maybe we shouldn't be so quick to label our neighbors' decisions crazy either. We're probably missing their context.
Totally. The sources really hammer this point home. We don't grasp how much our own very limited personal experiences shape our entire view of money and risk.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, think about someone who grew up during, say, really high inflation. To them, holding cash feels incredibly risky, like holding melting ice, right?
Yeah, it loses value fast.
So they might make investment choices that look aggressive, maybe even reckless, to someone who grew up when prices were stable. But for them, it's just logical survival based on what they lived through.
Right. And the statistic they mentioned is kind of mind-blowing.
Which one?
That our own tiny slice of life experience, like 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world economy,
Yeah.
dictates something like 80% of how we think the whole global economy works.
It's incredible, isn't it? And that huge gap in perspective based purely on lived experience, not intelligence, that's where so much disagreement comes from.
So context is everything, which leads us to another big idea: luck and risk.
The inseparable siblings, yeah. We love to look at super successful people like Bill Gates and say, wow, pure genius. But luck plays this huge, unrepeatable part.
So what was Gates' specific lucky break, according to the sources?
Well, obviously smart guy, no doubt. But a key bit of luck was attending Lakeside School back in 1968.
Okay.
Lakeside happened to be one of the very few high schools in the world at that time that had a computer terminal. They got it through a rummage sale, believe it or not.
A rummage sale. Wow.
Yeah, so Gates was one of maybe 300 students with that access out of like 300 million high schoolers globally. That's just insane odds. A 1 in a million break.
Okay, so that's the luck side. But you said luck needs risk to make sense.
Exactly. The sources bring up Ken Evans.
Who was he?
Gates' friend. Also at Lakeside, also brilliant, maybe even smarter according to Gates himself. Same early computer access, same ambitions.
What?
But Kent Evans died in a mountaineering accident before he even started college.
Oh, wow. That's tragic.
It is. Same talent, same lucky start, but hit by a 1 in a million piece of terrible risk. So the point is, outcomes aren't just about internal qualities. External forces, luck and risk, they shape everything.
So the message for us, for the listener, is maybe don't try to copy the extreme outliers like Gates or Buffett, because you can't replicate their luck.
Precisely. Focus on building strategies that work broadly, that allow you to survive the inevitable risks, rather than chasing these lottery ticket type successes.
Survival. That seems key. And it links to the next big trap, the danger of never enough. Even if you do achieve a lot, it seems like contentment is hard to find.
Oh, yeah. The classic example here is Rajat Gupta.
Former McKinsey CEO, right? Top of the mountain.
Exactly. The absolute peak, earning something like $60,000 per hour.
Per hour. Okay, so he had everything, yet he threw it all away.
He did. Risked his entire reputation, his freedom, everything, for what turned out to be, relatively speaking, not that much money.
What was the actual situation?
Insider trading.
Yeah.
Related to a big Goldman Sachs deal involving Warren Buffett. His associate made about $17 million from the tip.
Okay, $17 million is a lot, but compared to his reputation, his earnings.
It's peanuts. He destroyed a $100 million reputation, ended up in prison for something he absolutely did not need.
So the insight is like the goalposts just keep moving. Your expectations rise faster than your income.
That's exactly it. You take one step forward, the goalpost jumps 2 steps ahead. It creates this constant feeling of not having enough, even when you objectively have plenty.
And that drives you to take dumb risks.
Yeah, huge risks for things you don't actually need. Gupta wasn't risking things to put food on the table. He was risking things to keep up with some imaginary, ever-increasing standard.
And that standard gets amplified because we're always comparing ourselves to others.
Oh, it's brutal. Social comparison is a game you just can't win.
Oh, so?
Well, think about it. The rookie baseball player makes, say, $500,000 a year. Sounds great, right?
Yeah.
But he looks at the veteran teammate who just signed a $430 million deal. Suddenly, $500,000 feels small.
Okay.
But that $430 million star, he might compare himself to a top CEO making $340 million in 1 year.
Right.
And that CEO looks at Jeff Bezos, who apparently gained $24 billion in wealth in a single year once. There's always someone richer.
Okay, that makes sense intellectually.
Yeah.
But if you are that rookie making $500,000, how do you actually stop comparing yourself to the guy making 80 times more in the next locker?
Yeah.
How do you practice contentment?
That's the hard part, isn't it? You fundamentally have to change how you define winning. The sources basically say the only way to win the comparison game is to refuse to play.
Just opt out.
Yeah. Realize that taking a massive, stupid risk for something extra you don't need is just irrational. It doesn't matter what the billionaire next door is doing. If you're risking ruin for luxuries, you've already lost.
Okay, so stop comparing. Focus on your own behavior. How do we make that practical? How do we build that secure foundation? This brings us to that key difference you mentioned, being rich versus being wealthy.
Right. They sound similar, but they're really different. Rich is what you see.
The flashy stuff.
Exactly. The expensive car, the designer watch, the huge house, probably financed up to the hilt. It's basically income that gets turned into stuff right away. You know, like the source mentions your coworker, Roger.
Ah, Roger in his fancy sports car.
Yeah. Looked amazing until the bank came and took it back because he couldn't keep up the payments. That's rich.
Okay, so wealth is different. It's hidden.
Wealth is unseen. It's the money you haven't spent. It's the financial assets that haven't been converted into consumption yet.
Why is that important?
Because that's what buys you freedom, optionality, flexibility, control over your time. You don't see wealth walking down the street because it's sitting quietly in investments, ready to work for you.
Okay, so if wealth is invisible and market returns are unpredictable, how do we actually build it reliably? We have to focus on what we can control, right?
Exactly, and that is your savings rate.
How much you put away.
Precisely. The sources use a great analogy here back to the 1970s energy crisis.
Okay.
The U.S. didn't solve its oil dependency just by drilling more wells. A huge part of the solution was becoming way more efficient, using less energy to get the same economic output. Cars today are, 60% more fuel efficient than in 1950?
Right. So saving is like financial fuel efficiency.
Perfect analogy. It's making the most of the financial energy, the income you generate. And crucially, your savings rate is 100% under your control. Market returns aren't. Your income might fluctuate. But how much you save from what you earn, that's on you.
So high savings is the key, even more than high income.
It's the only reliable path. High income helps, obviously, but if you spend it all, you're just rich, not wealthy. High savings builds wealth regardless of income level eventually. And this leads to maybe the most critical concept for long-term success.
Which is?
The margin of safety.
Okay, what does that mean in practical terms for someone listening?
It means building breathing room, building buffers into everything. It's not just about having like a 3-month emergency fund, though that's a start.
It's more than that.
Yeah, it's about structuring your finances, especially your savings and investments, so you'll be okay even if things go worse than expected.
Like if the market doesn't give you those 8% average returns everyone talks about.
Exactly. Plan your savings so that even if you only get, say, 4% over the long haul, you still reach your goals. Or maybe you build enough cushion so a job loss doesn't fry you to sell investments at the worst possible time.
So it's about planning for things to go wrong.
It's about acknowledging they will go wrong sometimes. That margin of safety prevents panic, prevents recklessness when times are good, and ensures you survive the bad times. Because survival, ultimately, is what allows compounding to work its magic.
Survival. That leads perfectly into what the sources call the highest form of value you can get from money. The ultimate dividend.
Yeah. And it's not about buying more stuff.
It's control over your time.
Exactly. The ability to wake up in the morning and say, I get to decide what I do today. That, the sources argue, is priceless.
Even small amounts of savings can buy bits of that freedom, right?
Huge bits. Just having enough savings to take a few days off work when you're sick without worrying about the lost income, that's a massive luxury for so many people.
Yeah, I remember that story you mentioned from the source. The summer intern working in investment banking.
Oh, yeah.
Making crazy money, right, but absolutely miserable.
Totally. Because the cost was complete servitude, working insane hours, totally beholden to the boss's schedule, living in constant dread. The high salary was basically canceled out by the utter lack of control.
And that feeling of control, or lack thereof, is tied directly to happiness.
Very directly. Psychologists find that feeling like you're in control of your own life is one of the strongest predictors of well-being. Stronger than your salary, stronger than the size of your house.
But we're generally wealthier now than, say, 50 years ago. Shouldn't we feel more in control?
You'd think so, but the nature of work has changed, hasn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, think about a factory worker in the 1950s. When they clocked out, they were done. Work stayed at work.
Right.
But for many of us now, especially knowledge workers, the work follows us everywhere. It's on our phones, at dinner, on the train. It wakes us up at 3 a.m.
Yeah, always-on culture.
Exactly. So even though we might have more stuff, that constant connection, that erosion of control over our own time, it feels a lot of modern anxiety and unhappiness. Financial independence isn't really about being able to buy anything. It's about being able to buy back your time.
Wow. Okay, this has been incredibly clarifying. We started with that wild contrast, the reckless genius versus the patient janitor.
Yeah.
And the answer seems crystal clear. Financial success, maybe even survival, it really comes down to behavior. Patience, frugality, discipline,
Yeah.
not just smarts.
Absolutely. And crucially, understanding the roles of luck and risk so you don't fall into that never enough trap driven by comparing yourself to others. Build that margin of safety.
So wrapping this all up, what's the final kind of core idea someone listening should really take away from all this?
Well, the simplest advice is often the best. Spend less than you earn. That's the foundation.
Okay.
But if you want the mindset, the philosophy for enduring success, it's this kind of paradoxical idea.
So,
You need to be simultaneously optimistic about the long haul. I mean, look at history. The U.S. standard of living is maybe 20 times higher than 170 years ago. Despite constant wars, depressions, crises, growth happens over time.
okay, so long-term optimism.
But you also need to be deeply paranoid about the short term, about the bumps, the recessions, the personal setbacks, the bad luck that will absolutely happen along the way.
Paranoid optimism.
That's it. Be optimistic about the destination, but paranoid about the journey. That combination helps you stick around long enough for the long-term optimism to actually pay off.
Paranoid optimism. That's a powerful thought to end on.
It's the key to survival, and survival is the key to thriving.